30,400 people or cases by by the year 2021. And among those cases, more than 3,400 are new cases. This shows that cancer is real and cancer is a big problem to, of course, the Ugandans and, of course, another burden to Uganda's healthcare system. And we need to know why cancer is actually now becoming a big burden and how we can prevent the cases, the rising cases of cancer. And we will, of course, talk to the Executive Director for Food Rights Alliance, and we'll be asking her about the relationship between diet and the cancers. She is Agnes Chirabo, and she is with us in the studios. Welcome to the Limelight once again, Chirabo.
Yeah, thank you so much for hosting me once again, and good evening, viewers.
Well, it's a pleasure having you once again. Relationship between cancers and diet.
Thank you so much. But first and foremost, as a nationalist, I wish to convey my heartfelt condolences and the condolences of my colleagues, together with whom we are on this struggle of seeing that we reduce, if we cannot completely remove, cancer-causing items in our food system, to the entire country, Uganda, to the people of Omoro, to the family, to the Parliament of Uganda, for the loss of our Speaker, now the late Jacob Oulanyah, that people have fondly talked about, who I believe that the late Honorable Jacob Oulanyah was just starting his race to serve the people of Uganda and serving humanity. It's a pity. We can only say, may his soul rest in eternal peace.
Good.
Yes. To the question, the relationship between diet and cancer. First and foremost, I wish to thank the SALT establishment for considering to discuss this topic, but also for considering inviting me to be part of this conversation. Ever since you notified me, I have been pondering, and I was like, what is left for us people? What have we not spoken about? But I remembered that regardless of the age that you have, they keep reminding us about the similar verses and scriptures in the Bible, and several people can talk about the similar scripture in one same week. And every time another preacher talks about it, it's like new. So I remembered that I think we need to keep reminding our people by bringing these conversations closer. So today I decided that I'm going to have a conversation that has nothing to do with the science, a conversation that has nothing to do with the figures and the statistics. And I think the amount of statistics that you have given the viewers is quite enough. And it tells you that every new year we are having more than 10% increment of the new cases that join old cases of cancer in this country. To the viewers out there, we are all victims. And if you're not yet a victim, we are all potential victims, because we have deliberately, as food consumers, decided not to be conscious and not to make careful decisions on what we eat and what not to eat. We have not defined what we want to eat. And when I mention this, I don't want somebody to say, all the people are poor, they cannot make a choice. I'm telling you, when cancer ushers itself into your life, whether you're rich or poor, you're like, how I wish I knew the door. I would have closed it before actually cancer ushers itself into my life. So there is a great relationship. And I wish to tell viewers out there, that our food, our diet, it is not simply the food we see on the plate. Food moves a very long journey before you actually put it into your mouth. It moves miles. That food that you had for lunch started as a seed, and it was sown in soil. Some people add the chemical to that seed while in storage. Before actually you plant the seed, so many people out there add a chemical. So the seed is planted with a chemical, and another chemical is added on to it as a fertilizer. So it comes out of the soil, which we call sprouting. It sprouts when it is already in interaction with chemical. But some courageous farmer sprayed that farm with chemical to kill the weed with a herbicide, and some herbicides are actually prohibited by our World Health Organization. But here in Uganda, they on market. The farmers are buying them. The likes of Weedmaster. They have properties of carcinogen. I had avoided to talk about science. But they have properties in those chemicals that cause cancer. And it is confirmed. But a poor farmer this afternoon has been spraying his or her garden with Weedmaster.
To kill weeds?
To kill weeds, because they want to hurriedly plant. And they cannot afford the labor. And they don't have the technology. And they want to increase the production and perhaps the productivity. So now look at a seed that was stored in chemical, has been planted with chemical, has been planted in an already chemicalized garden. Then it struggles again, it sprouts, it comes to weeding, the farmer comes back and sprays the weeds again. And after weeding, or before weeding, the farmer comes back with another set of chemical. The other ones were herbicides. Now the farmer comes back with a pesticide and sprays.
To kill pests? To kill pests.
And then eventually, the grain, if it was a maize, is harvested. And again, some notorious farmers, they realize that there is demand for grain on the market at the start of the season, but the grain is still green, maize is still green. They go back to their stores and pick their Weedmaster. They come and induce drying by spraying the maize again. So this particular maize is living in chemical. And this chemical is misused, is mismanaged, but also some chemical has been dubbed hazardous because they are properties of carcinogen.
So Agnes,
you haven't eaten the maize yet.
You're suggesting, or you're implying that the food we eat is contaminated, and it could be probably the main cause of the rising cases of cancers in this country.
The maize hasn't gotten into your mouth. So, some notorious farmer has induced its drying with Weedmaster, a carcinogen property, carrying herbicide. Then the chemical, the maize is harvested, it is dried, it is kept in a fumigated room, It is not properly dried. So this particular maize is already contaminated with chemical. But to make matters worse, it is not properly dried. The moisture content is too high. And then it attracts molds. And those molds produce a toxin called aflatoxin. So on the chemical plus aflatoxin. So the grain moves from wherever it is coming from. It is on the truck. The rain rains on it. And so many things that happens on it. It gets to a processing machine. Apollo, I need to inform you that while I think I was on this set in 2020 during the lockdown, and that time we were screaming about the quality of food that government was giving out to people who needed food during the lockdown. And the fact that government had opened for everybody to bring food, which was very, very dangerous. Now, this is what happened. The National Bureau of Standards came out and told us that over almost 40% of the food that had been given to people was not fit for human consumption. It had aflatoxins, and they only tested it on aflatoxins. Okay? Therefore, National Bureau of Standards since then moved in to certify millers. And they did not even certify 30 millers in this country. There were around 24 millers. But we all know that in every trading center, in every market, at the countryside, especially in the northeastern Uganda, I have seen this practice so much that part of the country. In the wilderness, there is a processing machine. You find women carrying dry cassava, dry whatever, going to the mill that is in the wilderness. Okay? Now, another contamination, 3. The machines are not food graded.
The machines used
The machines that are being used to mill are not food graded. To viewers, when I talk about food graded, is that in the processing of food, there are particular machines that are supposed to be used that do not wear. They do not wear.
They do not tear.
They do not wear and tear.
Small pieces
yes.
that contaminate the food.
So most of the processing machines that we have in this country, across the country, save for the 24 that were certified, most of them are not food graded. They are fabricated.
You remind me of the G-nuts, the groundnuts we eat today. We no longer use our traditional
mortar and pestle.
Yes, and pestle. We buy, processed binyebwa,
yes,
from the stores.
Yes.
Are you suggesting that that's another?
It is the same category of what I'm talking about. And if you're to visit those markets, you're going to find that almost every week, the proprietor of that grinding machine, if it is for ground nuts, is changing the motors. You ask yourself, where did they go? They cannot be eaten by a rat. They are not eaten by cockroaches.
They are part of
They are part of the maize flour. They are part of the ground nuts that you picked from that shop this afternoon. So now a maize that started with chemical, it added aflatoxins, and now it has added metal. And then we consume it. Why, Apollo, I told you that we are all victims. How many times this week have you had a meal with ground nuts?
At least twice.
How many, I'm asking the viewers.
All right.
How many times this week have you had posho as part of your meal?
Part of our daily meal.
How many times do our children in school are fed on posho that is being bought from these non-certified processing plants that are using fabricated processing machines, and they are instead feeding our children?
Generally, Agnes, you're saying that the food we eat puts us to a higher risk of developing cancers.
Yes, especially cancers that start from the mouth to the exit of the system. The colon cancer, the stomach cancers.
Let's talk about briefly the contamination that comes with polythene. I don't know, in just a few minutes.
We are still processing. We were still processing. We hadn't eaten. Now, our maize that had chemical, it got aflatoxins. Now it has gotten metal as part of the processing. It gets home all in the restaurant, and the chef at home, all at the restaurant where you ordered your lunch from, mingles that portion and instead wraps it in a polythene bag and steams. So at the end of the day, Apollo, there is nothing you ate as food. My brother, you ate one thing, your portion of poison.
Really?
Your portion of poison.
From chemicals
to aflatoxins, to metal, now to
polythene.
To polythene.
It's all cancer.
It is all cancer-causing items.
Who has not done his work? Who is to blame for this?
There are several people to be blamed for this. But today, I wanted to address my fellow consumers. Because the repercussions are personal. I know there are viewers out there who actually wanted me to start by saying government. I want to start with you, the viewer. Cancer is personal. It is personal. We are all mourning. We have not worked today. Government has lost around 70 billion in taxes because we haven't worked today. We are all sent home to mourn and see our leader being laid to rest. But let me tell you, Apollo, I was not touched about Speaker's death. I wasn't touched until when I saw his children, until when I saw his father. This is when it dawned on me. I looked at these orphans that are crying out for their father. I don't know that how we have conducted ourselves today is the same way those children have conducted themselves today. I don't know whether how we have conducted ourselves today is the same way Speaker Olanya's father has conducted himself today. All of us, we used it today in different ways. We went to the farms, we went to the shops, we went to the salons, we went to visit, we went to do.
What should we have done?
I'm saying, today I came to talk to you, the consumer, that cancer is personal. It is personal. It is you who rolls in bed. It is you who knows the feeling, the pitch. It is you. It is you. It is your family. It is your children. It is your dependents.
What can we do?
You're not taking conscious decisions. Let me tell you this, Apollo. If consumers, we all deliberately chose not to buy those ground nuts.
Okay.
If we all chose not to buy them,
the producers would,
the proprietors would have gone and found ways of finding a food-graded machine to give us safe ground nuts. If at all we all as consumers decided not to buy food from that particular woman who cooks food in a kavera in the whole market, and they know I don't want to mention names here, that her food is cooked in Kavera. That is why the whole of her food was not bought yesterday. The whole marketing system will change. If at all, us as consumers, we knew that this particular school is not buying maize flour from the certified companies to feed our children on safe posture, so we are not going to take our children in that school, that particular school would have done differently. So we as the consumers, we have chosen to leave it that way.
Our time is running out. In just 1 minute, tell us if there is hope that this can change.
Yes, there is hope on 2 grounds. If the consumers demand and choose to eat safe food, but also then 2, if our leaders in our local governments really choose to govern and inspect and enforce safe production and management of food.
I didn't hear you talk about sensitization. Do these people actually know that what they are doing is really treasonous?
Many of them know. They know. They actually know.
What about we who?
But they choose not to.
We the consumers.
But the consumers, I believe they know. Apollo, Solot establishment, you've done your part. And I don't want us to victimize ourselves. We have done our part. We have told you. And your role is to pick this message from Salt and take it to your family, take it to your clan, take it to your community, take it to your society.
Your final word, Agnes, on this particular matter?
My final word is that kachumbari you're enjoying in the bar with pieces of some meat that I don't want to mention here, it is nothing but a piece of poison that you're voluntarily taking. Take conscious decisions. Let's learn to be very conscious on what we eat and what we choose to eat and where we buy it from and who we hold accountable. It is your life and it is your life. Take care of it.
Well, viewers, if we really knew that it is poison that we eat every day, probably we would have done something to stop it. Cancer is real. Cancer is out there. And we have a duty and a role to keep ourselves safe. My name is Sima Palama. Thank you so much for your time, and it's a pleasure always having you on this show.
Oh, thank you so much. We are available, and yeah, thank you for the choice.
Viewers,
so,
it is time.
Bit.
We will be back next Friday. My name is Sima Polo. This is the Limelight. You've heard it. Good evening and a nice weekend.